Hi, welcome to the Data Tech. So today we are going to discuss about what is REST API. So this video, I made it as two part of videos like part 1 and part 2. So I have shared the link in the description box of this video, and this is software engineering playlist, and I am making a lot of videos episode by episode, and you can even find the playlist link in the description box of this video. So please do watch this video completely end to end because this is worth watching. So I have shared so many use cases, the real-time use cases about REST API. So I have answered for so many questions that you may get in your mind. Let's get into the topic. REST full form, representational state transfer, and API full form is application program interface. So before we get into this REST API, right? So I hardly recommend you to watch my previous video in which I have explained what is an API and how to write a simple API and what are all the types of APIs we do have. So that video link you can find in the description box of this video. So this is an episode which is part of software engineering playlist, and you can find the playlist link in the description box of this video. So before we get into this REST API, let me just give you a heads up of what is API and what is a simple API, and then we can move on to this REST API. Now, just forget about everything. And now I'm just going to write a method add, and I'm just passing two arguments, and I'm writing a logic here. It could be any language, Python, Java, C, C++, whatever it is. So I'm just writing a logic C equal to A plus B and return C. Okay. So I'm just writing a code which gets two arguments, and I'm just doing this addition operation. Now I'm writing this code and I've done with this code. So Gautam. So now my colleague whose name is Kumar. So now my colleague is asking me that he needs this complete code because he is also developing a similar addition logic. So he's asking me this entire code. So now what I am telling him is, why you need my entire code? Rather, I'll just give my method, just use it. That's it. You just call my class name, dot, add, and you pass the numbers. And you will be getting the output as 3. So I'm not giving my logic. So this is what an API call is all about. Now Kumar is using my method, and that means I'm just providing an API to him and he is using it. Either I can give it for free or I can ask him to pay for using my API, right? So for example, if you take Python, right, you will be installing other creator libraries like pip install, and you will be installing the libraries, right? It is again an API. You are using someone else's APIs, right? And even in the Java, you have that import statements, right? You are using other APIs, which could be free or it's a paid version. Now, this is what an API is all about, and we call this as a simple library API. Okay, but this is not REST API. We haven't started that yet. So here I'm not showing him the logic, and he doesn't know what is happening internally. So this Kumar could be a developer or he is a user. For example, he's using a mobile phone, and in his mobile phone, he has a calculator app, and he doesn't know what happened when I click plus internally, right? When I click the addition symbol, what is going to happen internally? He doesn't know, right? So I'm just giving him the API call, so he doesn't know what is happening internally. So this is what we call it as an API, right? So you can do this with any programming language. And now, before again getting into REST API, we need to see few things to really understand what exactly we are trying to achieve today, right? So now the next thing what we have to discuss is all about, we need to know something called HTTP. Okay, now imagine you have your own laptop. Let me consider this as my laptop. I'll just give a name. And then I'm just open a browser and I'm just type google.com in my browser. Now this goes as a request, right? Request to the server. Which server? Google server. Okay, so this is a Google server. So my request goes to Google server. And upon receiving the request, right? So this Google server will process that request and send back the response. And what is the response here? It's the web page, the HTML page or whatever it is. So it's just showing you the google.com website. Right. So this request and response is happening when the nodes are connected in the network systems, or even in an internet, or even in an offline world when the machines are connected in the networks. This request response are still happening, and still it happens. And that is due to a protocol called HTTP, which we use in the networks. Okay, this HTTP, we are not going to get into deep about what is this HTTP and all, nothing like that. So I'm just telling you this HTTP is a protocol. What is protocol? It consists of set of rules and regulations, and someone have already created this. It's like a communication protocol. HTTP is a communication protocol. It transfers the data in the form of request and the response. Okay. The form of data could be anything, even a plain text, or it could be a JSON, whatever it is. The HTTP supports it, and it transfers the data from one node to another node. And it's not only when the internet is available. Even it can be done in offline when your systems are connected in the network. Okay, fine. So why we are trying to learn HTTP here? You may get a question, but I'll answer you for that question, because the REST API, everything happens internally via HTTP only. So we need to know what is this HTTP is actually doing and what it is on the whole. So whenever the client server architecture comes into picture, HTTP plays an important role over there. Okay, fine. So now what next? Now, if you see, like, this REST API is actually a web service. Okay, so we are writing a web service with this REST API. So if you see this add example, which I told you, right, and I have invented a method and Kumar is using it. So this is simple API. Okay, it's just a software service. Now I'm writing it as a web service, right? So then now how come Kumar will call this functionality as a web service? Now Kumar is calling this method just as is the method name, because it's just a software, a simple API, and I'm just using it as a software service, right? How come if I wanted to create an API in web, and how come Kumar will use it? It's again a method or something else. Okay. Now, how an API will be in the REST world, the REST API in the web world, right? So it will be an URL. Okay. So for example, amazon.com/cart. Okay. So this is an API. Now, whenever the user, so even I am a user, whenever I add a product to a cart, I'm just doing an API call, So you can get a question. So what is that API call is required? So I already told you that, right? So we are not allowing the user or anyone who is using that service to view my logic. No one can able to see what is happening, and they don't want to worry about what things are happening over there. It's about, I'm just given endpoint. What is endpoint? This method is an endpoint. I give this endpoint to the Kumar. So here it is a simple API. But here we call this again an endpoint. So I'm just giving this endpoint. So whichever user or whichever developer wanted to use this cart service, I will ask them to use this URL in your web development or in your Android development or iOS development, whatever it is, or even the user, I'll just share the URL. So I'll just give you the use cases. You may again get some questions in the mind, but I just wanted to make a clear path of the content so that you will be understanding everything, right? So I'll give answers for all the questions that you get in your mind, and you can ask me, how come you know my questions in my mind? Yes, I know. When I've started, I've got a lot of questions, with respect to this API, REST API. So now I got the complete clarity of after working on this on multiple years, right? So I know every possible question that in your mind you will be having, right? So now this is an URL, and within this URL, I'll be writing my logic to add whatever, like add in the cart or remove cart, whatever it is. I'll be adding the entire code, 100 lines, 200, whatever it is, I'll be writing here. And then if the user tries to call this cart service, I'll be giving it to them. Not only the user. For example, there is a developer in my team and he is asking me the complete code of adding the product to the cart because he is doing something on top of it or along with it. So I'm saying like, okay, so the code is ready, but I cannot give you the code. But I can even give you the URL, which is the endpoint. We call this as an endpoint, as I told you, or the routing point. Okay. So this is what an API is all about. The endpoint here is what an API is. So I've written an API, but I'll just give you the endpoint of it so that my developer, fellow colleague can use it. And with this URL, whatever he wanted to do, he can do on top of this API, but I'm not going to give the logic for sure. Okay. Now let's come to real-time examples. So is there some companies provide this kind of web APIs to us? Yes, definitely. Have you ever seen this similarity between, have you ever tried to check what is the similarity between cab apps like rental cab booking apps like Uber, or in India we have something called Ola, and then any food booking, online food delivery apps like in India we do have Zomato, Swiggy, and we have Uber Eats. So what is the common aspect of all this? They all use maps, right? For just to track the delivery, right? So these maps are not prepared by that particular company. These maps are developed by Google and they are just using it. And somewhere in the Uber, in the map, you can see somewhere in the corner, you can able to see this map is powered by Google. So Uber is using Google Map service. And that is internally how Uber will do. Uber will actually tries to call the Google Map APIs, and Google Map will provide that as an URL. Let me show you the real-time examples. Okay. For example, so here comes. Okay. So this is the developers.google.com/map. So here he gives the API for all map related stuff. For example, if you take this places, and whenever you go to some map and you will be seeing for that particular places, you will be seeing a rating like this that shows in this image. And if you want this to be get integrated in your website or in your mobile app, you can just use their APIs. So this can be done in any device. Imagine I am developing a mobile app, or someone is developing a web app, or someone is writing a software as a service. So anyone can able to use this. That is one main advantage of this REST API, because it's an URL. Any code or any technology supports URL, right, to embed their code, right? Now, if you see, if I want to use this places API, they are just giving something called API. If you click this, and this is not free, we have to pay for this. And in my upcoming video episodes, I'll be explaining how to use this Google API, how to integrate that in my website or mobile app. And similarly for YouTube also, I'll be showing. So please stay in touch with my playlist. Fine. So if you come down here, you can see here, make your first text search request. So when you click this, somehow when you come down, you can see they are giving this API for you. Okay, so this is the API for you. So till here it's an API, and search text is something like the text what user is actually searching. For example, you create a website or a HTML page where you create a text box, and in the text box user tries to search for the place name, get that place name from the form and pass it to this API. That's it. So it's about the coding work I'm telling you. Okay, so this is what. So we don't know what is there inside this place. Is this what logic they have written, what code they have written within this. So as I'm going to use it in my, imagine I am Uber. I'm just a developer in Uber, and I'm just using this Google Map in my Uber app, but I doesn't know what code they have written inside the places. And anyone can use it. If you are ready to pay, you can use their APIs. And now I'm just going to show you this YouTube API as well. So they have YouTube data API, and we all know what YouTube is. So it's a video streaming platform, and where people upload video and users will see the video for entertainment purpose, and from that YouTube earns money from the advertisement, and the creators get money via monetization. Fine. This is what we know. Apart from that, what YouTube is giving for the creators, they give APIs. So here for creators, YouTube recommends what title you can give and what keywords that you can give for your SEO purpose. But YouTube is not giving this for free directly. Instead, they are just selling this as an API service. Now, what happening here? Have you ever heard about this TubeBuddy? Every YouTube creators use this TubeBuddy product. You can just Google it. You will come to know what is TubeBuddy, but I will tell you. See, this TubeBuddy is using this YouTube API service, and they pay to YouTube, and they get all these data via this API call. They get like what is the leading niche and what is the leading trending content, and based on the creator who upload the video, so YouTube will suggest keywords and all, but that's all provided as an API. So this TubeBuddy is actually paying for YouTube data API, and he creates a product. And when you use TubeBuddy as a creator, TubeBuddy will help you to generate title, it gives recommendation for thumbnail, and then it gives you the keywords for your SEO. So many stuff they give. And I have to pay as a creator, I have to pay for TubeBuddy, So this is what. So now TubeBuddy is actually making a business with the help of this YouTube API. So simple. And even if you take Uber, right, apart from Google Map, they have written a lot of codings to just make their app available. But here TubeBuddy is not doing anything much more, right? Just they do this front-end application design, and apart from that, whatever the things they use inside, it's about like direct YouTube APIs. That is their most 80% to 70 to 80% of their business happens in that way. Right. So this is an example. Now let me show you another example. So this WeatherStack is a website which gives you the weather report, and they also give the API. They are just selling their APIs. Now these guys have the entire infrastructure and everything just to calculate the weather, just to capture the weather and all those stuff. But now think, I'm just creating a website where I have one column in my website where I have to show them the weather. Either I can use this WeatherStack API, or even I can use Google's weather API, but I have to pay for them. And then because I have a lot of visitors to my website, so I feel like, okay, if there is a weather report on my website somewhere in the bottom or top corner, it will be really good. And then I'll run my ads on top of it so that I'll make money. So now as a customer, I'm just using their APIs. And sometimes people will never know, like, so most of the times what people think, this map, what showed in Uber is belongs to Uber's. No, it's not. It's by Google, right? Most of the time people thinks that way, but that is because all the magic of this API. And no one knows what logic the code have written. So they just share the endpoint. The endpoint is in the form of URL when it comes to REST API. But when it is a simple API, it's a method name. Okay, fine. Now let's get into the Blackboard. Fine. So now we understood what is simple API and what is HTTP and how it works and what is endpoints, right? So we have done with all these stuff. And I have just showed you the real-time use cases of how API works. Now one more thing that we need to know. See, REST is actually an architecture. Okay, so REST is actually an architecture and it has some certain rules that we need to follow, but it is not like it's a good practice. Okay, so they have the rules and regulation how the REST API has to be get developed. But I'm telling you that as a disclaimer, I'm just telling you that it's good to follow the rules, or else some kind of confusions might happen. So don't think that always we have to follow rules. There is certain cases where we never follow rules when we are not able to achieve that particular logic. So there's one example I'll just tell you. So this is just a architecture. It's just a web service framework. So we use this REST to develop the APIs. And now in what language we can do? So any language. It supports Java, Python, or any languages that you can use. And if you take Python, I'm going to show you an example with Flask framework, which supports web service related development. Okay. Now, the important thing that we need to know inside REST. So I told you REST uses HTTP, right? And under this HTTP, REST provides 4 methods, and all your REST API calls, codings will complete just with 4 methods. So we call it as get, post, put, and delete. So when I show you the code, I'll show you the purpose of all this. So get is simply like the method under which you have to write your URL and the URL related logic just to view the data from the system. For example, I'm just querying a static website. Okay. So imagine www. Some static website. I just wanted to get the news. I just wanted to see. I'm not inserting anything. I'm not updating anything. Or if you go to Amazon and you just click product and you will be just seeing the product. So this and all comes under get. I want to get the data from the database or a file and I just have to view it. That's it. And then post. So post is a method. You have to write a logic where like user is sending a request to insert something to the database. For example, you are making a transaction in Amazon and that means your transaction is completed and a row will be get created in Amazon saying that this transaction was successful. So this is an insert that you are sending to Amazon website. So such logics you have to write it in post. Now put is like update. For example, you made a transaction and then the transaction was really successful and now you want to cancel it. And the refund happens. Now your record will be get updated from success to cancel to refund success. So this kind of logic again comes to put. Under put we have to write delete. Now I have to delete the record. I have to delete something from my, for example, I've added a product in a cart in Amazon. I have to delete that so that it will be get disappeared from my cart. So that kind of use cases you have to write it in delete. So here this get, post, put, delete has the certain roles and responsibilities which I have explained you. Maybe you can still have some question and you couldn't map something, but when you see the practical, you will really understand what I'm telling here. Now, imagine that you have certain cases where you cannot use put to update, but I said put is for update, right? There is some certain cases where you cannot use put to update. In that case, you can use post, but that is not recommended. As I told you, that is not recommended because REST has some restrictions. But imagine there is some certain cases where I faced where I cannot use put. I'll show you where exactly. When I show the code, I'll show you that. But I'm just telling here. So the rules wise, it is recommended to follow the roles and responsibilities of the each method. But again, if there is a technical challenges, then we can go for optional way, we can go for non-recommended way as well. Fine. So now we discussed about this 4 methods, and I'll show you how to write the code where I create APIs with the logic, the code, and I'll just share that API to the users or whoever need it. Okay. So the API can be shared to 2 set of peoples. Okay. So I'll tell you that. So you have written an API. So this API can be used by end user. When I say end user, imagine that, as I told you, Uber is an end user for Google Maps, right? So that is a user perspective. Okay. Now imagine I'm working for a company ABC, and within this ABC, I created an API. Now internally in my company, I have other teams, okay, other team members in a different team, and they want to use my code. So I'll be sharing my API to them, and these peoples are not users, they are developers. They are developers. So they use my API, the URL, the endpoint, and on top of it, they will add some of their extra code and they will generate another product. Imagine this team is a web development and this team is an Android app development. That is mobile app development. Now I'll just create an API who is a hard coder, but I don't know anything about mobile development or web development. I just write APIs. So now I'm just sharing this API to the web development and the mobile development team, and they use it in their own coding, their own framework, whatever it is. So 2 set of peoples, either that could be an user or they could be a developer. Okay. So part 1 video is completed. Thanks for watching. And you can find the part 2 link in the description box of this video, in which I have explained the practical stuff. Please do watch that. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe my channel.